What's your position with ISAF?
I'm the Training and Development Manager.
For the whole world?
For the whole world.
Wow, that's
130
impressive.
countries currently.
130 countries. Do you get to see them every week?
No, not every week. I'd like to. I think the boss is pretty keen on keeping me down in the building and trying to organise from back home, but when I can I try and escape.
And this is one of the countries, South Africa is one of the countries. You're here. What are you doing here this weekend?
We're running a level 2 technical course for coaches, which basically is training the trainers of the future for the South African sailing programme.
That is what you're going to learn to crew on a bigger boat. Okay? What is the most important thing today that you'll have to remember? You have to listen.
So as the scheme gets set up, these guys will go and deliver all the training of the coaches that will deliver the grassroots development programme on behalf of SAS, as the South African Sailing Organisation.
And that's the way you're getting to distribute sailing to a wider audience. Is
Yeah.
that it?
ISAF, who I work for, the International Sailing Federation, have identified that grassroots is the future of the sport in terms of getting more people in, getting the visibility, and if we don't have good coaches to deliver really decent training that's safe and fun and that will create that participation and a legacy of sport, then we won't really have a future in entry-level sailing.
And of course entry-level sailing is what makes, it gives you that whole sort of feed through to top-level sailing.
Very much so. None of what we do is without the knowledge that at the top end of the pinnacle, that journey ends up in Olympic sport, and with governments giving money for these programmes and also with the International Olympic Committee funding it, everything that we do is to try and develop enough people in the sport that the retention, the people that stay in the sport and get competitive, that enjoy it, will one day aspire to be Olympic champions.
What have you found here in South Africa?
I've found that the passion for the sport is pretty much unrivaled. We always come to each country with a limited background of information. The coaches have been through a lot of hardship in terms of their own vision of what they want to deliver, the fact that they've reached brick walls where they've been knocked back, but they've come back again and back again to try and make South African sailing something that they can be really proud of. And there's a zeitgeist, as I call it, being of German origin. It's a sign of the times that there is actually now a tipping point where everyone is accepting this as the journey forward, and that the SASCOC, the Olympic Committee for South Africa, is putting a lot of money and funding into making this happen, to build this international recognised training programme that we'll be inspecting next year within South Africa.
And on a more local level, here in Mossel Bay, what is your feeling about Mossel Bay?
The way it was pitched to us was the best sailing in the world, the best sailing in South Africa, and we hear that quite a lot, but truly being on the water yesterday, I said to one of the coaches, I could stay out here all day and all night if I had to. It's just a fantastic place, diverse as well, the people are friendly, but the sailing conditions are amazing. It varies from light winds to high winds all throughout one day. It's never constant, and that challenges you as a sailor and keeps you wanting to find out what's coming around the corner next. Absolutely, truly amazing place.
My title in South African sailing is the National Training Manager, which is effectively the control of all training and development of all training in sailing in South Africa.
Why is it important to train?
Well, South Africa, sailing is very small in South Africa, and we haven't had a definite scheme that was trusted by the people. So to grow sailing in South Africa, we need a clear-cut and clearly defined training scheme for safety and to make accessibility to sailing.
And this is where the recognised training scheme comes in.
We want to align ourselves with the bigger countries in the world that are very effective in sailing, so that when people transfer between continents, there's not a big gap in the training and a big gap in the ability. So your trainers are on the same level as the rest of the world.
Now, from a tourism point of view, what is training going to offer tourism in South Africa, and particularly in Mossel Bay?
Well, sailing is a very attractive sport and leisure activity to tourists. It's generally known in very exotic locations like the Mediterranean and the Caribbean and that, but we have conditions in Mossel Bay and a lot of South Africa that are almost the same as these exotic destinations. Mossel Bay is definitely up there among the Bermudas and those sort of places. And if we can develop sailing and have more people on the water, it attracts people to Mossel Bay to come and learn to sail from the rest of the world, and from our interior. There's a huge amount of people in South Africa that would love to come down and learn to sail, and also charter boats and just get on the water and as a leisure activity. And being a very green activity, not using a lot of fuel and that sort of thing, it's also becoming more and more attractive. The carbon footprint is very small.
As a parent, why should I bring my kid and have him trained as a sailor?
Sailing develops so much in a kid. I've, in my training experience, have seen children that have serious dyslexia that just don't get accepted in school and are so they don't fit into the whole team sport thing, and they develop in sailing. It's very much an individual development, and it helps these kids to get pride and development. And it develops the ambidextrosity of the person, it develops right and left brain, it develops individuality. A child that gets on the boat on their own, when they decide to go a certain direction with that boat in a race, it's their decision, and they pay the price or reap the reward for that decision. And from a very young age, your kid would benefit from sailing because they're learning to be independent. They're getting out in the open air and experiencing the sea and the wildlife that's around us. We have whales around us, dolphins around us. The kids really, it just makes them excited. It's beautiful.
Simon says go to back. Yeah, go to back.
And of course, it's not all about the kids. You were talking earlier about training adults as well. Is it accessible to adults?
Yes, very much so. We concentrate on kids because they're the future of everything we do. But there's so many adults in South Africa who would have liked to have sailed but have never been offered the opportunity. And I speak specifically to our previously disadvantaged market, where we've got a huge emerging middle class market who can easily afford to sail, and they're just not given the opportunity to sail. So through this scheme, we'll be giving those type of people the opportunity to get into sailing and to realize what an amazing sport it is.
Simlang Mudau, you're from the National Department of Sports and Recreation. Where is sailing going in South Africa today?
Let me tell you how we actually connected with sailing under the National Federation of South African Sailing. They are one of the federations we're supporting on our programs, and we work with them, we work with their athletes. I would like to see more black people in the sport. The sport is predominantly white and is considered a niche sport, kind of like many water sports anyway, but sailing is still really struggling. Otherwise, sailing is a beautiful sport. I've learnt a lot with sailing and the working group. We are working on the long-term athlete development, which is a model I know the Canadians are responsible for, and I've been part of that working group, trying to come with a document and a framework for sailing in South Africa.
Are we going to be seeing South Africans sailing in the Olympics?
By 2020, I hope we'll be seeing 12 medals from South Africans. At the moment, I'm not so really optimistic about having medals or them bringing medals in 2012 in London or 2016. But given the level of high performance athletes in sailing and sailors, we've had few guys at the youth ISAF Youth Championships, I believe. They came pretty much in the top 5 order. I'm not sure what position, but they did very well. And we do have talented sailors in this country. It's just a matter of them competing more at that sort of international level, and definitely they can and will rake in the medals.
Finally, is this your first visit to Mossel Bay?
Very, very much so.
And have you enjoyed it?
Mossel Bay, beautiful place, beautiful people, beautiful scenery, and very much a great place for sailing.